Shatnez?
Yeah.
A guy with another man's wife
That a more serious sin.
is a death penalty.
So it's more serious than wearing
I
a
believe
garment of
so.
linen and
I have
all?
to look up, what's the penalty for Shatnez?
Do you even need to look it up? I mean,
I'd have to, but because I don't, you know what? I don't memorize the whole Torah Balpeh. I have to look it up, but I know that it's Chayav Misa for doing Eishes Chayil. I mean Eishes Chayil. Eishes Ish. Eishes Ish is Chayav Misa for both parties. The
death penalty.
The death penalty for both the woman and the guy.
Mm-hmm.
All of these ones are death penalty. The bestiality, it's whoever is the person and the animal. The animal goes down too. The two men who are involved in the abominable act,
Yeah.
they both get the death penalty. On the incest one, do they get the death penalty? I don't remember.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, because they're all punishable by death.
Yeah.
They're all enumerated. They're all
Yeah.
punishable by death. Right. All of those cases are the death penalty. All immoral sex acts like that are mentioned, those four are the death penalty. Does shyness get the death penalty? I don't believe it does. I don't believe it does. But if it does, okay. If it does, don't quote me. But I have to look it up. But I don't believe it does. There are other types of sex acts which are forbidden, but they're not death penalty sex acts. For like a guy doing it with another woman, and then they're not married, right? That's not punishable by death.
Yeah.
That's just an Isser Lav, but it's not punishable by death.
Mm-hmm.
And so like if a guy was walking down the street and he had his arm around some chick, and they were like, hey, we're living together and we're doing it, I don't have a problem with that. That's their business, Maybe they're not at the level.
Right.
In some cases I applaud it. Like, say like you had a Jewish guy and a Jewish woman, and they're both single, and they're both like working towards, becoming more frum, and they decided to shack up. I'm thinking, you know what, that could be a positive, and I'll tell you why. Because together they'll move and advance towards becoming married and becoming observant, right? And what's the alternative? The alternative would be that they take a chance of dating people who aren't at that level, might bring them down. Yeah. So I think, it might not be that. I could applaud that.
So the whole way that you relate to the seriousness of certain sins is not with quote-unquote common sense or on the basis of what affects society, but on the basis of what are the penalties in Torah for these prohibited acts.
Pretty much. The significance that Torah gives them. And we can tell what the significance Torah gives them if it enumerates them as part of the 613, if they're derisa, and by what does Torah say about them? Are they, with like the homosexual act that really gets you on your... The Torah actually says that's an abomination, only uses that terminology very sparingly. That's really heinous.
And as opposed to certain seafood where the Torah says, do not eat this for it shall be an abomination for you, the Israelite, when it comes to the male-male anal sex act, it's an abomination, period. Not just for Jews, but period. It's an abomination for everybody.
Oh, right, because non-Jews are allowed to eat shell food.
Yeah.
They can eat lobster and crabs and all these things, right?
Right.
But they can't...
yeah, they can't have anal sex with the men.
No, they can't.
Did you have any reflections on the chat? I think Shira had a question last week.
Yeah, I want to get to that. But before we do that, I want to ask you, did you get any feedback from the person that I didn't see from either the story of the Pico Kosher Deli or from Ten Commandments about Chabad? Did anybody say to you, this guy got kicked out of Pico Kosher Deli? Was there any?
No.
Or did the Pico Kosher Deli guys contact you and try to give you their side of the story?
No.
Because you're the journalist, you should try to bring their side of the story into it.
Yeah, I'd love their side of the story, but...
I would love it too. They've never explained it to me. Everything I told you is all I know. I've never heard their side of the story.
Well, I'm sure I'll ask them one of these days.
Ask the owners their side of the story. I've only heard it through their workers.
Right.
You know? Did you hear any of your friends from Chabad say anything?
No, I haven't heard any of Chabadniks say anything. So.
No?
But I've been very quiet. I was recovering from illness over the past week, so I have not been to shul in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
So haven't been socializing very much.
Okay, so Shira had a couple of questions in the chat room that you
Yeah.
refused to take because she's not one of your best friends who
I didn't refuse
disrupts.
to take her. I have a million things going on, and
Okay, because I asked you, I said, make sure you get the ones from Shira, and at that moment she had popped the question and you ignored it. Okay, so she asked, last week we were talking about,
Mara's iron.
well, yeah,
Why
but...
didn't you explain to the guy going into into McDonald's wearing a yarmulke?
Well, wait a second, let's... Okay, I guess we could go straight, but I could just say, like, how we got into that was basically the same topic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you do... I said, the guy goes into McDonald's and he's wearing yarmulke, he's wearing seats, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And he orders a Big Mac.
Yeah. And
Okay? He eats the Big Mac, right? And I'm saying, Baruch Hashem, at least he had the yarmulke and the tzitzis. Right? At least he's keeping Torah, right? Eventually he's going to... He's working towards not eating the treif. But instead of looking at the guy and saying, "Ay, this guy ate treif. Oh, what a disgusting this." Like Baruch Hashem, at least he wears yarmulke and tzitzis, right?
Yeah.
So that's my attitude. I try to look at the positive, try to find the positive in people when, what they're doing. Now, Shira asked a great questions. He said, what about the people that see the Jewish guy at McDonald's? So what are they going to think? Well, that's what's called a Morris ayin, which literally means the looking eye, the eye that sees. Because the non-Jew, or not Jew, actually it's the Jew is going to see the guy walk into McDonald's, see that he's got yarmulke and tzitzis, and they're going to think, well, since this guy goes in there and he keeps kosher, so McDonald's must be kosher, and therefore I'm going to go. So you could be causing somebody else to learn the halacha incorrectly, and they're going to go in. That's the problem with Morris ayin. That's why we don't want people going into McDonald's with a yarmulke and tzitzis. So if a guy's going to say, hey, Rabbi, I wear yarmulke and tzitzis and I'm still eating at McDonald's, should I go in there to get a Big Mac? I'm going to tell him, no, don't wear your yarmulke and tzitzis when you go in to buy a Big Mac at McDonald's. However, if the guy doesn't ask me the question and he goes in there anyways, right?
Yeah.
He just goes in there and buys a Big Mac wearing this yarmulke and tzitzis. You know what? Rather than me say, oh my God, he did a Morris ayin, I'm going to say, Baruch Hashem, at least he has yarmulke and tzitzis. That's my attitude. It's after the fact. After the fact. It's not l'chachila. It's what we call bidi evet. Bidi evet, the guy went in there and, he made a Morris ayin, right? But I think it's at least he's wearing yarmulke and tzitzis.
What's the difference between lechatchila and
Bidi evet? Lechatchila is what we say, hey, do this, do that. It's to begin with. Do this or don't do this. Bidi evet is like in the event that it happened. The guy went in there. Now what? Now what do we say? And like bidi evet, I always try to give a person a benefit of a doubt, if wherever possible.
Can you get up? Let me fix your chair for a second.
What's wrong with it?
It's just I don't want it leaning back like that for you.
Oh.
So just give me 10 seconds
Okay.
here. Whoops. Still not fixed. There.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Are we good? We're ready to roll?
Yeah.
Shira said something?
No, don't worry about it.
What about the non-Jews who see him? Actually, that's exactly what she asked last time. I was going to get to that. Shira asked, doesn't that do something to how people see Judaism and Jewish people? Well, my answer is, that's the thing, is how do you judge him? How do you judge this guy who just walked into McDonald's? Yeah, you could learn from him, which is the definition of Morris ayin.
Mm-hmm.
You could learn from him that Big Macs are kosher. But what do you think of him? I would think, well, at least he's wearing a yarmulke and tzitzis. This is how I look at the guy. I say, here's a guy he's trying. He's got one foot in the right place. He's got one foot in the wrong place.
Right.
He's wearing the tzitzis and the yarmulke. On the other hand, he's eating a Big Mac at McDonald's, right?
Right.
I try to look at him and say, what, Baruch Hashem, the guy's wearing yarmulke and tzitzis. Hopefully, eventually he'll stop going to McDonald's, and he'll replace it by going to...
You can't finish a deli.
No, he won't go there, but he'll go to Jeff's Gourmet, and hopefully not with a shirt that says,
I commit the forbidden...
yeah, that would be... Hey, which one's worse in your eye? Going into McDonald's and getting a Big Mac, right, with a yarmulke and tzitzis, or going into Jeff's Gourmet and getting a kosher Western burger wearing a shirt that says, I banged your son.
The latter is 1,000 times worse.
Okay, it's just a T-shirt.
It's not just a T-shirt. It's saying something. It's an abomination.
Okay.